Welcome, focused learners, to The Explainer. I am so glad you're here today, because we're going to do something a little bit different and, frankly, deeply fascinating. Today we're taking a deep dive into a single, highly potent concept. We're going to deconstruct a really simple 12-word maxim about momentum, failure, and the honestly surprising physics of making mistakes. As we'll see when we break this down, the implications of these words can completely rewire how you view your own setbacks. Why does this matter? Well, because every single one of us deals with the sting of failure, right? We kind of let a single stumble define our entire journey, halting us right in our tracks when we really should be capitalizing on the energy of that moment. This phrase, it changes everything.
Okay, let's dive into this. Even if you fall on your face, you're still moving forward. Just let the raw reality of those words hang in the air for a second. We've all been there, right? That visceral, sinking feeling of a carefully laid plan completely collapsing right in front of us. But within this blunt observation lies a profound mechanical truth. We aren't just going to read this quote today, we're going to dissect it. We're going to break down its anatomy, its hidden vectors, and its ultimate message to fundamentally shift how you experience your very next setback. Section 1. The mechanics of falling. Let's deconstruct that impact. Before we get to the sunshine and optimism of the quote, we got to start with the first part of our anatomical deconstruction. We're going to focus purely on the physical and the linguistic implications of a hard, sudden stop. Because to understand the momentum, we first have to respect the impact. The phrase starts off pretty harsh. Even if you fall on your face. It doesn't sugarcoat anything, does it? The literal reality of this first half implies total failure. It implies a sudden, usually embarrassing loss of control, and a really painful, abrupt encounter with gravity. I mean, think about the public nature of a faceplant. When you fall on your face, your hands didn't even catch you. You couldn't brace yourself. It represents the absolute worst-case scenario of trying something new and failing spectacularly in real time. It feels like an absolute 0 point, basically stripping away all your dignity. And this brilliantly illustrates a crucial difference. Think about it. Falling backward implies you are retreating. It means you're physically losing ground. Leaning away from the challenge, shrinking back into your comfort zone where it's, safe. Conversely, to fall on your face, what's the hidden prerequisite? It requires forward motion. You literally cannot fall on your face if your center of gravity isn't already aggressively pushing into new territory. If you're leaning forward, fully engaged, and leaning into the friction of progress, your failures are going to push you in that exact same direction. Let's break down the literal anatomy of the fall. First, there's the sudden impact, right? The immediate shock to the system. Then, the loss of vertical posture. You go from standing proud, executing your master plan, to just lying flat and disorganized. And finally, the unintended destination, because you definitely didn't mean to end up on the floor. And hey, it is completely valid to fear this state. Psychologically, we human beings tie our self-worth to our standing, our posture, our apparent control. When that posture is lost, we feel like the journey is entirely canceled. In the heat of the moment, these kinesthetic elements trigger a profound sense of defeat. But, as we're about to see, the actual physics of the situation tell a completely different, much more encouraging story. Section 2. The hidden forward vector. Let's look at the trajectory of motion. Now we pivot our focus to the actual trajectory of the body in motion. We're moving from the painful impact of the fall to the underlying physics of it. Let's see how this builds across the chronology of a setback. Step 1. Moving. You have to be generating momentum, taking that initial risk. Step 2. Tripping. The mistake happens. The unpredictable variable completely disrupts your balance. Step 3. Landing forward. If you map out the inherent logic of the quote, chronologically, it proves a physical certainty. You simply cannot fall on your face if you are standing perfectly still. The very act of the faceplant is undeniable scientific proof of prior momentum. You had to be trying. Now, what's really interesting about visualizing this mathematical breakdown is seeing the directional progress of a faceplant. You are 100% moving forward. It's kind of hilarious to think about it that way, sure, but it is mechanically, mathematically accurate. Despite the incredibly messy posture, despite the bruised ego and the scraped knees, the entirety of the action is oriented in a positive direction. You might have lost your dignity temporarily, you might be covered in dust, but mathematically, you gained distance. You are physically closer to your goal than you were a second before you tripped. 12. That is the exact number of words in our source quote. Just 12 words. But within this incredibly tight linguistic package, there's a complete shift in perspective. The phrase acts as a linguistic fulcrum. Right in the middle, it takes a static, painful failure, puts it on a pivot, and transforms it into a dynamic, ongoing trajectory. It is an incredibly efficient use of language to change how we process shame and failure. Think about how powerful concise language can be. In just a dozen words, centuries of conditioning about failure being a complete stop sign are entirely undone, rewiring our mindset to see the fall as a launch pad. And here is the ultimate payoff, the second half of the quote. You're still moving forward. The sentence itself physically pushes past the impact. It doesn't deny that you fell, it doesn't tell you to pretend it didn't hurt, it just points out that the fall itself was a method of travel. It absolutely insists on continued progress. It reminds us that gravity might have pulled you down, but your relentless momentum carried you ahead. You aren't starting from scratch. Actually, scratch that. You are starting from a completely new, advanced coordinate.
Section 3. Redefining your progress. Let's explore visceral momentum.
We're going to take this mechanical breakdown we just explored, the vectors, the chronology, the undeniable math of the fall, and apply it to our broader, everyday understanding of setbacks and personal growth. This gives us a totally new definition. Forward is not just a direction on a compass. It is the inevitable, physical result of trying and maintaining momentum, regardless of grace. We need to completely redefine this concept in our minds. Forward is a vector that's earned through the sheer brute act of trying. It makes the abstract concept of progress deeply visceral. You don't have to look good doing it, you don't need applause, you just have to be in motion.
Which leads me to ask you this directly. Does your posture dictate your progress? Think about that for a second. We are so conditioned to believe that if we don't look completely put together, if we aren't standing perfectly upright and executing our plans flawlessly for everyone to see, that we aren't making progress. We equate looking good with doing well. But we just proved that wrong. Looking messy, literally being on the ground, does not negate the literal ground you just covered to get there.
So the crucial point is it comes down to a simple choice: static perfection versus messy momentum. You can stand perfectly still, making absolutely zero mistakes, keeping your clothes perfectly clean, protecting your ego at all costs. But you're going to stay exactly where you are. Or you can choose messy momentum. Progress is rarely clean. It involves tripping, it involves gravity, it involves sudden, jarring stops. Your direction matters far, far more than maintaining a perfect, upright posture. Embrace the mess, because the mess means you're moving. Let's look at the source text one last time. Even if you fall on your face, you're still moving forward. Read it again now, knowing what we know. Look at it not as a warning, but as a victory lap. The hidden vector has been fully exposed. It's not just a comforting platitude to make you feel better after a humiliating mistake. It's a literal, mechanical fact about the nature of trying. The fall is the receipt that proves you are moving. It's the absolute evidence of your ambition.
And I want to leave you with this final provocative thought. You took the risk. You fell. You survived the impact. And as we've established, despite the awkward posture, you've successfully advanced your position. You're further along now than when you stood safely on the starting line. So, since you're already moving forward, what's your next step? Get up, dust yourself off, and leverage that hard-earned momentum. Thank you for joining me for this explainer. Keep learning, keep moving, and I'll catch you next time.